The work that nonprofit organizations do shapes the world that we live in, and it's more important today than it ever has been, and it's more important than ever that nonprofits do more. The key lies in their willingness to wrestle with 4 questions that are very easy to ask and very tough to answer. First, what results will we hold ourselves accountable for? How will we achieve those results? What will it cost to get them, and where will we find the funds? And last but not least, how will we build the organization that we need to succeed?
Nonprofits are really challenged by serving so many different constituencies and so many different needs. When they look at their customers or beneficiaries, the needs seem endless, and they're constantly trying to do more good for the people they care about. This is a great impulse, but nobody can do everything well. So nonprofits really need to think about what are they best at providing, and recognize that sometimes the seeking of doing more good actually doesn't do better.
How do you define for yourself what your intended impact is? That's one of the key questions. Well, one of the ways to do that is to get at the question of what are your core beliefs and what is it that you really want to hold yourself accountable for as an organization. This often takes you back to your mission. In some organizations' cases, the mission is about a specific geography, whether it's an environmental organization committed to urban parks in a city, whether it's someplace like the Harlem Children's Zone that's committed to a defined geography and the children in that geography. There are places where the organization's belief in just core values really is an important ingredient in forming what it is you want to hold yourself accountable for. And it's critical to take that piece of the puzzle seriously.
So a key problem facing nonprofits is how will we actually achieve the results we're aiming for? We have a broad inspirational mission, we have the specificity of intended impact, but how are you actually going to get that impact for your beneficiaries? And a list of programs is not enough. Just collecting those doesn't get you there. You need to decide what needs to be done to help that beneficiary move to the place you want, the intended impact you're trying to achieve for that beneficiary. And the best way to do is not start with what you're doing, but start with what the beneficiary actually needs to have delivered to him. What are the various programs and efforts that will get the results you want? For example, if you're worrying about helping the homeless, you might be thinking about providing counseling, providing access to services for the people to get over the issue of living in a home as opposed to living homeless. But somebody has to worry about, is there actually capacity for the homeless to move into? That may not be part of your program, but your theory of change, what you need to do to achieve those results, requires that that exists. And so you need to look at those pieces.
First, we start with the results an organization wants to achieve, a question of intended impact. Then you ask what are the programs needed to deliver and realize those results. And in parallel is what are the resources that it will take and how do we secure those resources. And while we don't always like to talk about it, funders, whether they're government officials or generous and wealthy philanthropists, are making decisions based on a set of their own internal criteria and results that they want to see that is what motivates them to give. They're giving on behalf of the beneficiaries, but are not giving as though they were the beneficiaries themselves. Foundations have boards, wealthy individuals have personal aspirations for the role that philanthropy will play in their lives, and government officials have constituencies to answer to. These shouldn't be viewed as limitations or problems with the nonprofit funding world. They are the nonprofit funding world. These parties give money that allows fantastic work to take place, but they are giving money on behalf of others, and they themselves have their own needs. And if nonprofits can't understand the landscape of the funders and understand what those funders need to continue their giving, they won't ever successfully build large-scale or reliable funding models to support their very important work.
We know from our own experience that people, in fact having the right people in the right jobs, will ultimately trump strategy. But we do know from our research and our work that having the right people with the right strategy in an effective organization will achieve superior results. So the question that leaders face is, how can I build an effective organization? One of management's most important roles is to make sure that people know what to do, but also how to do the work that they're assigned. High-performing organizations do this by making sure that the work processes are well-defined and well understood and well used by their employees. And while it can take investment and it can take time to improve work processes, we find that sometimes perfection is the enemy of the good. That sometimes you can get groups of employees together in your organization and within a matter of days identify those handful of problems that are keeping people from being as most effective, and have employees come up with creative solutions for how to address those as rapidly as possible.
Over 10 years, if you said, I want to double the impact of my grant making over the next decade, dollar for dollar, a dollar I give away 10 years from now will generate twice as much social impact as the dollar I'm giving away today. Is that a stretch goal? In finance, that would be about 7% compounding a year. I'm not sure 7% feels like a stretch goal. But how many grant makers are rigorous enough and aggressive enough and set the bar high enough to say, you know what, society needs impact. Our communities need results so much that what we are going to work at is year in and year out getting better and better at our strategy and grant making so that we are in fact increasing our impact 5 or 10% a year, year in and year out. Businesses can do that. Foundations can do that as well if they strive for that, if they impose that level of excellence on themselves.